the Fitness Business Growth Podcast. I'm here with 8-figure online coach Shane Costa, one of very few coaches in the world to hit that magical 10 million
wow.
US dollar mark, mate. How are you?
Good. It's quite a nice intro when I hear that. It still surprises me.
Mate, I make the intro so good that the guests can't possibly live up to it.
Yeah. Well, let's see. Let's dive in and see what we can share and hopefully inspire some people today.
100%. That's what this podcast is all about, just educating other fitness professionals about the trials and tribulations of being an entrepreneur, but also just like going from an in-person PT to online is a very, very scary step. So Shane, mate,
it is.
I'd love to go back to the beginning of when you were a PT from the start to working at Fitness First, having trainers working under you. And what was that journey like for you?
Yeah. Well, look, I guess that in the fitness industry, there's only so far you can go, and I guess just a bit about my journey. I started very young in 1999, where maybe I don't even know how old you are, mate. You're probably probably still in diapers.
Mate, I was in year 5.
Yeah, cool. So I started in the fitness industry many moons ago in Sydney, 1999, and eventually ended up at Fitness First and spent many a year on the gym floor doing personal training, right? So fitness industry is something I fell in love with. Helping people, obviously, with their health and fitness is pretty cool. But obviously, there's only far you can go as a one-on-one personal trainer, right? Obviously, everyone understands the concept of trading time for money, being a slave to a job, not really being a business owner because you don't earn when you're not there. And so I started dabbling in entrepreneurship in the early 2000s. Somehow, I always sort of put my hand up for things that made me feel uncomfortable, and I felt challenged me. So early on in my career, I started mentoring and I started exploring ways to leverage to make money when I wasn't directly working with someone. And I was able to do a little bit of that. Kind of tried some different things that were available in that era. Didn't quite succeed, didn't really have the skill, the knowledge, the guidance, the business acumen, to make it work. So
just to jump in there, mate. Also, the internet wasn't established. There wasn't a social media.
The internet didn't even exist. Facebook was a dream.
Yeah.
And Mark Zuckerberg was picking his nose, sitting in a high school somewhere. So look, none of that existed, and I tried and didn't really. So didn't quite crack the code anyway. Some years on, I just kind of went back into one-on-one and got to a point where I was the highest earning personal trainer that I knew of, and as a one-on-one personal trainer, but that didn't quite satisfy the appetite. So I went into
Can I jump in there, mate? What number of sessions were you doing a week, and did you have PTs working under you? And you just don't become the highest earning trainer overnight. What was that like from jumping on the floor to getting it right?
Yeah, so look, at this point, I was still a solopreneur, still running my own personal training gig, right? And I was averaging 50, 45-minute sessions per week, and I was charging extremely high because of the clientele that we were serving, and I was serving in the Sydney CBD in the corporate space. I realized, look, there's only so many hours in a day. At this point, I attempted for the second time to scale, and with a little bit of help and coaching and support, I got the fundamentals in place to build a business for the first time. And I ended up doing that. We reached 13 personal trainers in a very short time frame. We reached about 13 trainers working underneath my new company as an entity, as a company. We were doing about 250 sessions per week.
Far out, man. That's a lot.
I was highly profitable and running a very successful personal training business that effectively was run within a business. So obviously, we've reinvented what personal training opportunities were available nationally through Fitness First and its entities. They even restructured their contracts to allow us to work within their space, but also to confine me because I was growing so fast that before you know it, they were going to have to put my logo outside their gyms.
Man, that bad.
It got pretty serious, man. It got to the point where we had to have some hairy conversations because the brand was growing so fast within their brand, and they were concerned about what that meant in terms of the growth and the monopoly that I would possibly have on the gym floor.
Yeah, and just to jump in, I guess they were concerned that Miyagi got so big in, for example, their Pitt Street Club under the Hilton, that you would open up a gym and take half the members.
Well, they were concerned that we were just taking over in terms of the percentage of what the personal trainer base was, and that we were going to own that monopoly, that we would own the gym floor in terms of our marketing strategies, because we were fairly aggressive in how we went about things. Maybe aggressive isn't the right word. Maybe committed is a better word.
You were just better. Like, simple as that.
Well, we were more committed, I would say, like we were willing to do things that others weren't, and so walking the floor, putting up banners, running promotions, having special offers. Like I got to the point within this business that I could have a cold lead walking through the gym, give me $100 within 3 minutes.
Far out.
Within 3 minutes, a person I'd never spoken to before was tapping their credit card for $100 to take our intro offer that we had crafted, that was simply too irresistible, too good to refuse, that effectively it was free lead generation. So think about one of the biggest pain points of any fitness entrepreneur or any personal trainer is getting new leads. Imagine obviously having to go online and pay for paid media. What if someone paid you to get a new lead? So that's how we went about it.
And you being that entrepreneur, you being onto something, having success, growing to a big team, 250 sessions, you would have wanted to keep on growing. And then did that conversation take place? We're like, hey, mate, you need to slow down.
Absolutely, that conversation took place. I was looking at clubs in the Gold Coast. I was doing workshops in Brisbane. I was flying down to Melbourne, meeting with people in the head office. It got crazy, like in terms of what the potential was. I was looking obviously at opportunities and how we were going to kind of, not so much franchise, but we were going to have sort of create an opportunity where we could scale this beyond than just me, right? Obviously, that was a lot of fun, and I learned a lot of lessons, and I'd probably say that was really where a lot of the foundations were learnt and established with regard to hiring, interviewing, managing, and obviously dealing with the challenges that come with all that, right? So COVID hits and the world changes, right? I'm sure anyone watching this probably had a significant shift and change in their life through COVID. And that's what happened with our business.
I'd love to just dive into the hiring part there and the challenges that hiring faces. Mate, I've very rarely been a gym owner or PT that had someone that worked for them that didn't try and run away with half their client database. Did you experience that?
Absolutely. Look, you've got to accept that that's part of, I guess, the risk, right? It's the cost of business, so to speak. However, you've got to be putting measures in place that limit the ability of people to do that. So I hired a very good barrister, and we had an amazing contract put together that was ironclad. Now, that doesn't ever stop someone from necessarily being stupid enough to try, but it does make them think twice. And so I was actually able to sell, I can't give you the exact number, but it was about 12 clients, and I actually received about $70,000 for 12 clients.
Far out. And that was like based off their lifetime value of Miyagi.
That was based off the lifetime
years?
value. So one personal trainer was silly enough to try to take the clients, and then we entered into negotiation, and they're negotiating with the wrong person. And so within, I guess, a week or two of obviously those conversations, they agreed that they were going to enter into a contract for about $70,000. Now, given I've just told you that I was acquiring clients within 3 minutes, and they were giving me $100 to enter into my business, like, would you pay $70,000 for 12 clients? You'd have to be silly.
At that point, Shane, obviously it's about money at some point, but was it more of a betrayal? Like, hey, we had this conversation.
Absolutely, man. That business was riddled with lots of trials and tribulations. One of them in particular, at this stage, I'd been through a lot in my life, as many people obviously do, and worked really hard to get the business to where we did, and put a lot of effort, time, energy, and blood, sweat, and tears, right? When I say we, my wife and I decided to go on a holiday for the first time in so many years, because we finally had the business, right? So we go on this holiday together, and things are operating smoothly, and we get back from holidays, and 6 of 12 of these trainers decided that they were going to, I suppose, combine forces and arms and resign on the same day that I got back. So half of my personal training team decided that they obviously were going to be a little cheeky. And obviously that was a huge wake-up call. It really shook, the foundations. It really challenged, I guess, the framework of what we built, which is not necessarily a bad thing because, look, change is inevitable. The foundations will always be tested. And so that's what happened at that particular point. And I certainly learned a lot about myself and how to manage difficult conversations without obviously entering into things emotionally, trying to look at things pragmatically and negotiate sort of way through it, you know?
Yep.
So it was a good experience nonetheless, but yeah, those things happen.
So between Fitness First not being as nice as they could have been, between 6 trainers ganging up, between a trainer literally taking clients, and then COVID, that's the world screaming to you like there's got to be a better way.
Absolutely, man. And there's even a little bit more of a twist to that, you know. So like we through that trial, let's say, where we had this group of trainers try to exit the business all at the same time, mind you. Obviously, we had a major dip and found it really difficult to get the personal trainer numbers back to where they needed to be. Of course, then you need to build your client base again because things do get, you know, broken up and shaken up. We finally started to get some traction after a period of time, only to feel like we were breaking through again when COVID hit. Now, at this point, I had 2 businesses. So I had the personal training business, but I actually started consulting, and I built something called Miyagi University, which was meant to be for the fitness industry, personal trainers that wanted to not necessarily just scale to 6 figures, but scale to 7 figures, right? And so we were teaching them sales and marketing and business. So it was a separate business, but obviously through that period with shutdowns, the fitness industry was decimated. So not only did my personal training business go under, but the consulting one went under as well at the same time.
Mate, I say this every chance I get because I want it to sink in. We opened up a gym, Breakthrough Active Cardiff, still open today. Literally March 23, 2020. Like the launch date was the day of COVID. So mate, I'm there with you.
Oh my goodness.
Extremely challenging. It was just, I still can't believe what happened, man. I can't believe it. Like
pretty crazy,
I don't want to go on a rant for 10 minutes.
It's pretty crazy, man. So, you know, I guess whether it's fortunate or whether it's the universe, whatever you want to call it, you know, like I, at that stage, was lucky enough that I guess I was already asking myself for a third opportunity. It was already, on a subconscious level, already open to the possibility that the next thing to step into really was the online space. I just didn't quite know how at that point, because the skill set that you need to successfully operate on the ground is a very different skill set that you need to be able to operate online. It is night and day. Right?
Just backing up with your PT business, obviously Fitness First have 100 members joining a month, 200 members joining a month. You can obviously get leads from them directly. At that point, had you run any paid ads at all to acquire clients for Miyagi PT?
Nothing whatsoever. Paid advertising wasn't necessary in the gyms that I was operating purely because of the amount of volume that was coming through the door just naturally. You just needed to be able to engage them through your own strategies, because you do have, despite that you don't have to pay for media, you've got a lot of competition, which is obviously a big element, right? So you've got to have a different way of going about things to stand out from the crowd. That's all.
And then, mate, obviously we met in the same mastermind, Systems by Design, both very fond of AG and AP. I remember before I joined that program, it was 15,000 USD from memory. And one of the last things I did before I purchased that program was go back and listen to the Systems by Design podcast. I love podcasts, right? You can't fake it.
Yeah,
there's a podcast of you on there.
Yeah,
and it was about some guy in Sydney who was going to make 4 million in the first 2 years. I thought, this has to be real. This has to work. So, mate, talk to me about the journey going online, taking that first step. And was it scary? Were you excited? And was it harder than you thought? Or I'll tell you one thing, mate. I've never met a successful online trainer that wasn't successful in person first.
Yeah, you're right, man. So, look, I'm first and foremost, I mean, my journey started many years ago before getting online from a personal development perspective. So I became a huge reader. I truly believe that readers are leaders, and that, you know, to be able to build a business, you have to have your house in order. You know, like, man, I don't smoke. You know, I rarely drink. I don't do drugs. I don't gamble. Sometimes I make silly decisions with money. What I mean by that is, you know, we make investment decisions or business decisions that don't quite work out. But My house is in order. Like I'm settled. I'm married. I walk my dogs. When I'm not injured, I do jiu-jitsu. I do my weight training. So yeah, you've got to have your own house in order, in order to be able to do anything really. Because the minute you open the door to a new venture, like you launch a business, you launch a product, you launch an offer, like it's inevitable that resistance will happen. Trials will come, pushback will occur. Failure is a part of the success formula. So setbacks and some really difficult moments are going to be a part of it. So our ability to navigate those waters with a cool head is crucial. And I'm not suggesting that I've been perfect all the way through, but it's certainly been a huge element of the success formula. So you're right. Yeah.
I often find, mate, that like people that are successful in coaching programs, they're 90% of the way there. They're missing 10% of the puzzle, which is like how to run ads, use this booking link, have this landing page. And like the person makes the coaching program, not the other way around. Because as we know, people do coaching programs, they don't get success. And then some end up on a ClickFunnels stage. So what is the difference?
Yeah. Without sounding cliche, it is your mindset, right? So, you got two different people. You got person A, person B. Person A enters into the same program as person B. Same opportunity, same coach and mentor, same market, same time and space, same problem they're going to solve. And person A goes in believing that they can acquire skill, that setbacks are just part of the journey, that it's just taught them a new lesson, that they can actually learn how to run ads, that it's simply a skill they are yet to master. And so they go into that phase with optimism, with there's always an element of fear, because fear is part of the formula, but they overcome it with courage and with action.
100%.
By understanding that little actions every day produce confidence, and it creates forward motion. Forward motion is fundamental to success. You have to be creating forward motion. Person B, same opportunity, same coach, same program, feels stuck. They tell themselves stories like, I'm no good at marketing. I don't know how to write an email. I've actually suck at sales. I'm no good at managing people, whatever it is. And so this fixed mindset where they feel that their skill set is limited and can't be expanded upon and can't improve, fundamentally becomes the blockage.
It's the most interesting thing, mate, because that level of labeling, that level of I'm not a tech person, I'm never going to go online, is the same thing your client says when they say, I'm just a smoker. I've always been a smoker. It's just, there's so much hypocrisy in that. Like you get frustrated at your weight loss clients if they behave a certain way or they have a certain mindset. It's the exact same principle with learning a new skill that you're not comfortable with.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, mate, you're going online, and I know that you have your two brands now. Two brands.
We've got more actually. I mean, we've got 5 brands. There's only really 2 that realistically I would say have crushed it for us. You will always launch more brands than succeed. I've probably launched about 12 brands over the period. I'm just about to launch a new one. But there's 2 that have crushed it.
So with this audience, mate, some of them are just getting through their Cert 3 and Cert 4. So we need to go back a little bit more in regards to what is a brand. So you joined this online coaching program. They taught you how to be an online coach. What was the first thing you set up? Was it Change Transformations? What was the name of it? What was the brand? And what were your thoughts behind that first niche?
Man, it was so bad. It was so bad, you're going to laugh. But so a brand is simply something that identifies to a particular audience and it speaks to a particular demographic. So think of a brand like, when you see Nike on a t-shirt, that usually tells a story. And it's a story that we usually feel that brand represents with us. Like we identify with that story. Hence why some people are more inclined to wear Adidas. Other people might be more inclined to wear Under Armour because of the story attached to the brand, right? So it kind of goes down into niching and sort of who you're trying to attract. So we started with the Fit Mum project,
The Fit Mum Project.
Yeah. And so obviously, you know, getting into the online space is quite tricky. We were not necessarily, I didn't want to be an online fitness coach. That wasn't the reason why I went online. I always had a bigger picture of thinking. So just to clarify, you know, some of you watching this will want to get online to gain clients. You want to be an online coach, and that's great, right? So you can scale, you know, tremendously online. You can do the work, you can do the actual consulting in different ways, whether it's one-to-one or group coaching. That wasn't what I wanted to do. So I immediately started putting the foundations in place to be able to create some scale. So I didn't have to be the actual technician, but instead I was already thinking another level up. So think about a six-figure coach technically is the person doing the work usually, right? Doing the consulting, breaking down the meal plans, prescribing the exercise, the technician, okay? If you go into the seven figures, then at that point you definitely cannot be the technician. It is virtually impossible, I would argue. And at that point you're now operating as a business owner. You should have some staff underneath you. You've definitely got some really rock solid processes and systems, and you've created scale. So what that usually looks like is you've got people reporting to you in different areas, whether it's sales, marketing, customer support, the actual coaching department, bookkeeping. You've got a couple of things in place really to operate a business at that level, right? So we started with the Fit Mum project, and funny enough, it actually gave us quite a bit of success quite quickly. We were obviously just targeting the pain of dissatisfaction. You know, they were dissatisfied with their body, how they look, how they feel. It starts to impact not just their health, but now you've got some issues with their moods, and it's starting to impact their relationships or their ability to repartner if they're a single parent. So the Fit Mum project was fun. It was exciting. But I quickly realized that we needed to create some opportunity to attract a different audience. And I just went after another really generic and another terrible, you know, market. Well, not necessarily. It's just different. It's not really my long-term jam. It's not terrible. It's just really generic. We went after the Bikini Body project.
Mate, I would love to hear about your first online sale, because I remember mine. What was that feeling like when you collected money? Just when you collected money over the phone for the first time.
So I still remember the sound. So it was a husband and wife at this point, because when I was signing up this lady through the Fit Mum project, she said, "Oh, do you guys help men?" And I said, "Well, absolutely." She had coordinated to get her husband also on the line, and I wasn't going to say no. I said, "Absolutely, we can help you." So we ended up having this conversation, and they actually, we came up with a deal on the spot that we would sign the two of them at about a 25% discount to both of them. And I just remember that feeling of getting my first sale, seeing the contract come through signed digitally and all that, and then the money was exchanged and I just went, wow. I remember rushing out of this door, going to my wife saying, "We did it, we got the first one." And that feeling is euphoric. Yeah.
And it's just belief that, like, hey, this does actually work. Like all that fear of, is this going to work? It's done. Yeah. Now, mate, you love sales. I love sales. I love to talk about transitioning from sales in person as a PT to over the phone.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of sales, like 10,000 memberships by now.
Yeah.
The script I got off AP was an absolute masterpiece.
Yeah.
And I think you have to have done a lot of sales to recognize it straight away, because I used to sell like an absolute bulldozer. I would roll over people. And then I couldn't believe just how easy it was, and just the price we were charging at the time. And just the script just takes them through just this wonderful journey of discovery and why it's important to them.
Yeah, I think it's a big eye-opening experience for anyone that thinks they know how to sell, and I'm included in this conversation. I thought I knew how to sell when I was working in the gym, and, you know, keep in mind, I actually, in my days, my biggest sale was $140,000 check paid to me in one go as a personal trainer.
Far out.
And $140,000 check. And in hindsight, now looking back, what I've learned through this online journey and learning how to sell online and going through this, what I would call basically it's like a PhD in psychology and sales. I would look back at that person and say, well, actually, you didn't know how to sell. Because it is night and day. It legitimately is night and day, because when you're trying to sell a product that's tangible and the action threshold is so low because the barrier to entry is so low and the risk is so low, you've got a tangible product, a gym, that's got something they can see and use. They usually have a risk reversal, 30-day trial, money back guarantee. The cost of acquisition is so low, so the risk of losing a client is so low. Like the conversation basically, or the sale basically happens on its own. You just got to have a decent smile and
the best thing I ever heard, Shane, was like, yeah, well, if you have a local studio, like AG said, yeah, they can just put a brick through your window. There's that level of safety, right? Like I can go and find Shane if I'm unhappy.
Yeah, that's right, man. So, entering into the online space and starting to explore what it meant to actually sell online was really eye-opening. And it was like being thrown in the deep end and actually coming to the realization that, wow, that this is two things. And I like to coach, people that I help with sales. I talk about the two-prong approach, basically. So sales is a science. Just like gravity, things that we can test and measure, things that we can rely upon, there is a science to sales. The other thing that it is also an art form. And so the art form is your ability to put into life and into action the scientific principles of sales and to give it context. I'm talking about cadence, tonality, inflection, pausing, intelligent lines of questioning, reframes, and in fact frame control.
Absolutely.
There is so much in high level sales that it is a combination of the scientific principles and a deep ability to implement the art form.
Yeah, it's having a framework, not a script, and then having the emotional intelligence to use that framework to relate it back to that prospect, their fears, and uncovering, well, that's going to be an objection. I need to handle that right now.
Absolutely. So being able to identify things early enough so they don't come back to bite you later on, right? So, it's a beautiful thing. So it is the combination. So it's selling in a gym and selling over the phone, so remote sales, high ticket sales, however you want to refer to it. It is a much different skill set. It's a bigger task.
You said it perfectly. Like selling in a gym is like have a smile on your face. Just literally, they've driven down from their house. There's so much sunk costs. Just be nice.
Yeah. It really isn't that complicated. Yeah, a nice handshake, a warm smile. Some interest in the person. There's a famous saying: when you're interested in people, they're interested in you. So it doesn't need to come across salesy in any way in particular. You legitimately just be interested in people. And so what's brought you here and what, if you could achieve anything, like what would that be? Once they start to disclose, that's called the self-disclosure loop. Once you trigger self-disclosure, it actually triggers dopamine and feel-good emotions. So your friendly phase, your nice, appropriate handshake, and your ability to not trigger what's called psychological reactance. So if they don't feel like they're being sold to, is going to put them at ease. They drop their guard. And at that point, you can become the assistant buyer and you walk them around, the gym floor and whatever else. And it's a very easy sale. Now on the phone, you've got a completely different obstacle to overcome. So it is a different 100%. Skill set. Yeah.
So you had the failed brands, the first attempts, the learning, the Fit Mum project, the Bikini Body project. Mate, with Fit Mums, you get a lot of partner objections as expected.
You get them in every brand, to be honest. I don't think it's ever something that I haven't seen happen. People are great at deflecting.
100%.
People are great at deflecting.
When I first heard about your two really successful brands, I thought, that is so smart. Like, that is brilliant. Heart Smart Australia, Diabetes Wellness Australia. Yeah. How did you land on that? And where did that idea come from to position yourself of like maybe two of the worst chronic diseases in Australia to help them overcome that?
So I guess it's amazing what is born out of necessity, right? So the diminishing return on any brand is a real thing. So you've got your total addressable market in any brand, right? Whether it's gut, whether it's hormone, whether it's dealing with nurses that are overweight from the ages of 25 to 30, right? There's a total addressable market. And when you first put your ads out, you're going to get the low-hanging fruit. You might already have a following. You may have already built up a bit of an organic following on your socials, and you might have a small email list. And so the first few clients, when you launch an offer without ads, is quite easy to start getting some interest, and you get a first few signs. And then you launch some ads. The ads tend to go fairly well. It's a new offer. Facebook does a really good job at finding, again, the low-hanging fruit. Then you start to get into difficult waters, because now you're starting to go down into a deeper layer of prospecting of the market, where they may not actually at this point, you might have already addressed the top 10% of people that are both problem aware, they're solution aware, they're product aware, and they're actually ready to take action. So those people, what I call
just to jump in,
laydowns.
Shane, to make it simple for our audience. So Facebook is absolutely amazing at putting your ads in front of the right people. If you spend $10 on Facebook, it's going to put your ads in front of the top 500 qualified people that are interested in that ad, in that offer, if your messaging is right. As you spend more, think of it as a circle. It goes colder and colder and colder.
Like an onion.
Then you're scraping the bottom of the barrel.
That's right. It's a good analogy. Yeah.
Before we give someone a heart attack, mate,
yeah.
gym owners struggle to spend money on ad spend. And it's a discussion that I have. So tell me to shut up if you want, but what level of money were you spending then? And what are the levels that you've gotten to, just to really open up people's minds?
Well, we started off with obviously having to be extremely conservative, because, you don't want to just go throwing money and pissing it up against the wall, right? So before you spend a lot of money and you scale your ads, you need to validate the offer. So you put out on a small budget, you put out, a first campaign. If you've nailed your offer hook, if you've nailed your funnel, you start to look at the data points, you start to see what that looks like. And if you're starting to get some decent conversions and you've nailed your fulfillment side of it, then it's time to scale, right? So we started small, and I'm talking about $500 to $1,000 initially a week, extremely small. And with every sign up that we got, we then incrementally started to increase that to $1,500 a week, to then $2,000 a week. We kind of hovered for a little while at around, say, the $7,000 a week, while we were still getting some certain little bits right and making sure we were profitable. And then we got to the point.
I'm not sure if you're aware, Shane. Most gym owners spend about $100 a week. So when you say really small, 500 to 1,000 a week.
If I tell you I've spent 60 to 70,000 in a week, then you might fall off your chair.
But I just want to recap, because they're going to hear these numbers, the 1,000 a week up to 7,000 a week, and I'd love you just to break down as elegantly as possible ROAS and what enabled you to spend that much money in terms of collecting cash over the phone to finance the ads.
Yeah. So look, typically in different niches, the ROAS, if that's a term that your audience is familiar with, probably needs to be at about a 5 to 1 in the fitness space, and the reason is, you can afford to have it performing at a lower level if you're going to be the technician. So if you're going to be the person selling, fulfilling, and managing your community, so you've got 0 staff, then you can afford probably to run at about a 2 to 1 or a 3 to 1. You're probably still going to be profitable. When you want to start creating some scale, when you need appointment setters, sales agents, and all the tech, HubSpot and whatever else you need to get, you need a bigger margin.
Mate, my Slack bill is literally more expensive than my commercial real estate at the gym now. It's outrageous.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, so we our technologies and stuff cost us and what's every month. So we typically wanted to operate at about a 4 to 1. If we could get a 5 to 1, in other words, if you spend $500, then you should be getting $2,000 to $2,500 back in cash.
Yeah, in the simplest way possible. Shane spent $500 on ads. He acquired one client. They paid him $2,500, which is a 5 to 1. And ideally, Shane, being a savage salesperson, about 20 to 30% will pay in full to cover that ad spend.
Correct. You typically aim for about a 30% one-pay conversion in most, sales environments. And so if you can get 30% of your people paying up front, and then the rest are on some level of payment plan, it works really well. And obviously then you scale at a rate that, it's working for you and things are still working. Again, we got to the point very quickly where we're probably spending around 20,000 a week. And then over the course of time, we got up to the point where consistently about 50,000 to 60,000 a week.
So just let's say 70,000. You mentioned that before for a round number. It's 10,000 a day. It's 500 an hour. 500 an hour, which means that on this podcast, you're going to spend $500, and you have so much exposure. It's like, oh, like it's in the business.
Well,
how do you get that level of being so comfortable spending so much on ads? Are you that certain, that convicted that, like, hey, this system works?
You have to be, and you're going to make mistakes. There's more mistakes than I would care to share with you on this podcast, but I've made so many mistakes in this journey. And here's the reality, guys. Like, it is virtually impossible to succeed at this level without some really high level support and coaching. I legitimately say it. If you're sitting in the crowd, if you're watching this podcast, thinking you're going to do this on your own, I would really question that, because the amount that you need to know and understand to make this work is extraordinary, right? So to get to the point where you can spend $10,000 a day on ads, you have to have built the tolerance to get there. You have to have the confidence that you can spend $1,000 and be profitable before you can spend $2. Before you spend $3, you've got to be confident you can spend $2 and be profitable, and you've got to work your way up. Like, one thing I want to caution, and this is one thing I wish I knew when I started, is the ego metrics. And I hope I don't come across on this podcast as an egomaniac. What I'm most proud of is not those ego metrics, but it's more that I'm proud that I took a chance, that I believed in myself. And whether you've achieved 10 million in sales or 100,000 in sales, I would applaud you. Because
100%.
I would applaud you.
I want to applaud you because you made a joke about my age before, me being in year 5. You being an older personal trainer kind of missed the internet at school. It is such a reasonable thought to have that, like, hey, I'm not cut out for the online world. You took a huge risk, huge chance, 100%.
Absolutely. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, what we need to focus on is skill acquisition. If you go back and read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, one of the books that influenced my journey the most when I was starting, I guess, my personal development, was Robert's book. And if you haven't read it. I'm about to reread it again, because I feel there's some principles there that probably haven't quite sunk into my thick head yet. So the concept he talks about in the book that really shaped my thinking was, you don't work for money. You work to acquire skills. And part of that means that in launching a business, let's assume you wanted to launch a restaurant. Like, you would be an absolute moron by its true definition if you didn't understand every part of that business to the finest detail. I'm talking managing inventory, front of sale, like customer facing engagement, what's going on in the kitchen, and so forth. In the online space, if you wanted to build an 8-figure business, like, it'd be very foolish to not know every aspect of that business and how to operate that business. And I mean to the highest level. You have to know ad copy, email marketing. You have to understand funnels, what a quiz funnel is, what a book funnel is, what a low ticket funnel is, what an application funnel is. You want to know what SLOs are, self-liquidating offers. What's an OTO page? What's a bridge sale? What's a down sell? If you advance beyond that, then you want to know the metrics within that. What are norms? What are the acceptable metrics? What are the unacceptable metrics on the funnels? Now you need to talk Facebook ads.
That is the biggest thing for me about having cool friends, mentors that I look up to and admire. The ability to call someone and say, hey, is this number normal? Yeah, you're in range. Then I can move on to the next problem and solve that. But
exactly,
like, you actually don't know what you don't. You don't know what you don't know, because most gyms in Australia get leads for around $20. Online's about $5, right? It's just like, if you don't know that and you're getting leads for 20 online at a very small budget, that first $500, like,
you should be getting lower than that. Yeah,
you have an offer problem. You have an ad problem, right?
Absolutely, you should be getting much lower than that. Yeah, absolutely.
So, mate, what was it like going on the journey, going to ClickFunnels and getting the 2CX award, $10 million US, meeting Russell Brunson, having that photo that so many online entrepreneurs aspire to be like, because you've seen Alex Hormozi on that stage, you've seen Tanner Chisiter on that stage. What was that moment like for you?
Man, it's hard to put into words. You know, this journey is riddled with stories. It's riddled with sleepless nights. It's riddled with, euphoric moments of complete joy where you're jumping up and down, high-fiving. It's riddled with moments of despair and anxiety. So to get to the point where you look back and you go, like, holy shit, like we actually did that, is really hard to, I suppose it's really hard to put into words. But, you know, if I think about that moment where I was about to walk on stage and I see the guy that I, you know, admire and really look up to and draw inspiration from, standing there waiting to hand me an award that represents all those years of learning, all those years of struggle, all those years of belief in the face of data and evidence that's suggesting that this is going to fail. In that moment, like the tingles, the feeling of complete joy, the stupid smile on my face that you couldn't wipe off, like it was just amazing. Yeah.
And what you just described then was that it is the journey. Like the award's great, but like you just look back in the last 5 years of years of struggle.
It's the journey, and it sounds so cliche, but it is, man. It is the journey. And you know what? It's the person you become. And again, that's going to sound extremely cliche. But if I look back now at who I was when I started, say, 4 and a bit years ago, what I knew, what I understood, the things that I could handle, the conversations that I could partake in, like if I had to get in a room with high-level marketers, could I hang with them, for example, right, and talk shop at a level that they would respect me? 4 years ago, absolutely not. But today, absolutely. So it is the person you become. It's the skills you acquire. It's the leader that you evolve into that matters most. So I'm just going to have to open my door.
Yeah, you're right,
mate. Keep going.
It's interesting you say that, mate, because I look back on Jamie 12 months ago, and I'm almost embarrassed.
I can imagine.
I thought he knew everything. I thought that guy was like so smart. Yeah. And now I think, imagine. How arrogant, how stupid are you to even think that thought?
Man, it's cool though, right? I mean, I think it takes humility to be able to look back and not in a way that's negative upon oneself, but with, I guess a little bit of a sense of also pride. And wow, like that was where I was back then, and I thought I kind of knew my stuff, but like, look at how far I've come. And also then being able to look into the future and with I guess a firm, clear understanding of who it is you still want to become.
100%.
I think that's important. Yeah.
The further you go on the journey, the more you realize your tolerance for the amount of work required just increases. Your tolerance to handle stress increases.
It increases.
Your tolerance to have that bad morning, bad night, it increases. And just like most people get to that threshold, there is that first bit of adversity. You mentioned it, fixed mindset, and it's like, why me? As opposed to like, hey, like this is a moment in time on a long journey.
Exactly. And look, in anything in life, you're going to have your 80-20 rule. If you just purely measure things off Pareto's theory of the 80-20, 80% of people that start something will fail within X period of time. So then you're left with your 20%. 80% of that 20% will fail within the next period of time. And then you're left with the 20% of that 20%. And so the difference between those that continue to progress forward and push on and those that have given up is simply the ability of shit that they're willing to eat and struggles they're willing to face and difficult moments that they're willing to work through before they tap, so to speak, metaphorically, right?
Man, so if I could explain to you just how much goes wrong on a daily basis, having 75 GHL sub accounts, and if someone resets their Google Calendar password,
I can imagine.
The smallest thing can just start this trickle effect at scale, and it's just like eating shit for hours on end.
I could imagine, and that's just part of it, right? And think about it. If it was easy, then you wouldn't have the market carved out, and you wouldn't have an opportunity that you have. So, in fact, there's a great book which is. It's The Resistance is the Way, I believe. It's based on Stoicism, and it talks about how the very thing that is the obstacle is the way, and the obstacle is the way. And I think it's a Ryan Holiday book, and effectively, it's sort of based on principles around Stoicism. And if you understand the Stoic philosophies of values and different things, I mean, they truly take responsibility. They look at things from a very different perspective. And, those that are able to push past that adversity, see the obstacle as the very thing that stops anyone else from going down that path.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
The reason we started our Done For You service, mate, is my Lord and Savior, Alex Hormozi, that $100 million offers book, I do love it, but it created about 1 billion marketing agencies of like, run this ad, help this gym. And I thought, well, like, I don't want to compete with marketing agencies because they're all doing the same thing. So I'm going to build this thing over here. But I think you, AG...
Perfect strategy, yeah.
Literally, like, I can think of 4 people that could probably do it. And it would have to have the perfect set of circumstances, from like owning a gym to doing systems by design to having this massive online business. So that's literally why we did it. Like, it's so hard to replicate.
Yeah, and I think that you're spot on. I think the fact that it's not easy is the very reason why it's a good opportunity. So long as you can validate the concept and you can show early on that it's got the potential, and that it also feeds you and your soul. In other words, it gives you the ability to live the life you want to live. There's things about this business that I look back and think, I wish I knew what I know now. And that is what Hormozi talks about as the stupid tax. Unfortunately, sometimes in life, I mean, you don't know, as you mentioned before, until you know. So sometimes you are going to eat shit, and you are going to pay the stupid tax, as long as you stay in the game and you can keep playing the game. I think Hormozi refers to it in that way as well, where he refers to it as the game and you keep playing the game. It's not winning or losing.
It's Simon Sinek, the infinite game. Like, you don't get in shape, you stay in shape. You don't get married, you stay married. You don't start a business to close it, you start it to keep it.
To
right?
stay
like,
in it, yeah.
People just think, like, the idea of drinking a coconut on the beach sounds boring to me. I'm going to the end.
Yeah, so like, I mean, look, I'm a big believer now more than ever in having an exit strategy. If we're really thinking big, I guess depending on everyone's goals, everyone's going to have a different goal and a different objective. Ultimately for the game they want to play. Let's call it that. Everyone's going to have a different game they want to play. For me, ideally, I want to build a company that has an exit strategy, so that it has a legacy and it continues even without me. I mean, that would be a very cool thing, right? So, for those that are listening, we built a telehealth company that solves, some big problems. We help people prevent early heart attacks. We help people reverse their type 2 diabetes, and all other kinds of things related to obesity with respect to that. So we want to build something that has a lot of legacy and continues to operate even if I'm not around, right? So that's the mission. It hasn't been easy. It still is not easy. There's some really difficult months ahead this year. The market is legitimately harder at the moment, and so it's about innovation and refinement, and you keep pushing on.
Mate, I speak to very few people that are passionate as you about an entrepreneur or the entrepreneurial spirit, or relentless.
Yeah.
Which I want to get into is your new venture, Relentless. What is Relentless? Why did you start it? Why does it light you up inside? And what is the mission of that business?
So, I love sales and I love marketing and I love business. And I know the battles that the new solopreneur faces, and even, the experienced entrepreneur that's been operating for some years now and just can't crack the code of getting off the tools, moving away from the consulting. And I'm not talking about just fitness. I'm talking coaches in general. It could be a life coach, could be a nutritionist. It could be a financial planner. It could be someone that is a spiritual healer. I don't really care. If you're a coach, we do the same thing. We provide a service that solves a problem. So that journey to operating a business that's successful and that can serve people, is a difficult one. And you have to have a degree of relentlessness to you. You have to be so committed to the why. If you understand a little bit about, let's say Simon Sinek, and when he talks about and start with the why, that has to be so deeply, deeply, deeply ingrained in you that you are prepared for whatever resistance comes your way. And it legitimately does require a relentless commitment. And so recently I just decided, well, you know what, it's time that aside from what I'm building with my own health company, that it's time that I help online coaches in whatever niche and space they're in to successfully grow their offer and scale their offer and get every aspect of that right, from the lead generation into, well, let's call it the offer hook first, getting the offer right and establishing, your piece of the pie, and not going after a red ocean, so to speak, but understanding where you can fit in so that you have a market that truly wants what you do, that is different to anyone else. It's extremely important. That's a really important point. So once you nail your offer hook, then we start to look at the marketing initiatives and what we can do around the funnels, and how do we take a cold lead, someone that's never heard of you before, to a point where they are absolutely ready to hand over money. Right. And so once we get them to that point, well, obviously there's a sales element to that, and then there's a fulfillment side of that. And so then there's obviously a retention side of that. And I've paid the stupid tax, right? Now, I've paid the stupid tax 100 times over. And so what I aim to do with my new venture, The Relentless Entrepreneur, is to help these entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, avoid having to pay the stupid tax. Like, you don't have to pay it. If you get the right coach, if you get the right support, and I don't care if it's not me, but if you get the right person, it is literally impossible to be successful without help. Alex Hormozi was mentored by Russell Brunson, and then he had other mentors. So no man or woman can stand alone.
Yeah. It's something that people think mentors say because they want to get money out of them. But like, hand on my heart, I've had 3 epic mentors, and I could not do what it is today without all those three people in my life. Yeah. And don't get me wrong, there is a skill of picking the right one. For me, like, has that person done it? Do they live a life that I admire? And have they grown the business with the same moral and ethics that I want to grow my business using?
Yeah, I love that. That's based on a set of values. And if your values are aligned, then it's a perfect, beautiful synergy, and it becomes something that empowers you. Think of them as, it's not an expense, it's an investment. Because let's assume a good mentor, was to cost you, just so we've got a number. Let's just say it was $1,000 a month, right? It's probably a lot more than that, but imagine they could save you $20,000 a month. Or imagine they could save you when I say save you, let's address the opportunity cost. Let's say your business is generating right now $100,000 a year, but it has the potential to generate 500. So the opportunity cost is $400,000. Let's call that the stupid tax. So because you don't know what you need to know, you're missing out on $400,000 of revenue each and every year. You compound that over 10 years, you add inflation to that. That's a lot of money. So what would you pay to have someone teach you the skills to get your income up another $400,000 in a year? Like, what would that actually legitimately be worth if there was a guarantee on that?
It's the same with weight loss, mate. We helped a guy lose 40 kilos in 2015, one of our first ever members of our gyms. He paid $1,000 and I was dirty. I'm like, how much would have you paid for that? You would have gave me everything you had.
Absolutely.
Like, that's how powerful like that transformation can be, whether it's weight loss or in business. And for me personally, mate, like, my big shift happened was when I joined a mastermind, Systems by Design, and I saw the numbers they were doing.
Me too.
And
I remember that. Yeah.
And I thought, like, I don't think they're 15 times smarter than me. And if I can accomplish 1 times what they've done, I'd be pretty happy.
Yeah.
That was my thought process.
Yeah, same as me. And I remember looking at those numbers and just thinking, wow, like, isn't that, impressive? And see, the thing is too.
Shane, your camera's gone off, mate.
Sorry. Am I back on?
All good? Not yet.
Are we back on?
Back
there we
now.
are. There we are. Yeah. Yeah, I think, and working alongside the right mentor, they're going to give you belief, they're going to give you vision, they're going to help you navigate, difficult waters and make crucial decisions. I can't state enough, the importance of having an excellent mentor. And I think as you grow, and depending on what level of business you build, those mentors in numbers have to increase. Think of an accountant as a mentor. Think of a financial planner as a mentor. Think of a CFO as a mentor, think of a business coach as a mentor, think of a sales coach as a mentor. So very rarely will you find a mentor that has all the skills you will need. When you're starting your journey, you can work with someone that's obviously quite broad and has a diverse understanding of general principles. The more success you acquire, the more niche and higher level experience you need on every particular facet of that journey. So
yeah.
your
And
list of
when you're
advisors,
spending 70,000 a week, 5% from booking to show to close can be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Huge difference. And so, yeah, as you grow, your list of advisors needs to grow.
Mate, we've run a bit late. I apologize. I've got one more question for you. What are you most proud of over the last 5 years?
What I'm most proud of? I'm most proud that I actually gave it a go. And here's why. Look, there are so many people that have dreams, right? Anyone watching this is aspirational. Like, you're not watching a podcast unless you are aspirational. In other words, you want something. But wanting is one thing. Doing is another. And so when I look back at my journey, there are, people I can think of that wanted success for so long, and they still are wanting. They still haven't pulled the trigger. They still haven't taken action. They still haven't done what is necessary to move the needle. And so I personally think, for me, if I was to look back at myself and with a pat on my back, so to speak, it's just, well done for trying, because we glorify success in terms of getting on stage and lifting a trophy or something. But the real success is just starting.
Just having a crack.
Just have a go, because otherwise you're going to die wondering, and your potential is only potential unless you apply action. So you truly have to give yourself a pat on the back for just trying and getting started.
You mentioned the why is so important, Shane. I'll tell you a story. It's a little bit embarrassing, but I'll share it with the world. My first job out of high school, I worked for Centrelink in the Family's Assistance Office.
Yeah, cool.
I used to help people get childcare rebate and family tax benefit.
Yeah.
I worked there for 3 years, left February 9, 2012. I hated my life. Took a $40,000 pay cut, ended up getting a job at Fitness First Chatswood. I've never, ever been happier. When I drove home to my parents, I literally drive past the office, I park out the front, and I just look at it for like 5 minutes. And my wife hates it, but I'm like, you don't understand just how motivating this is. Like, I'm just never going back there.
Yeah. And mate, well done for you for having the courage to identify that, well, I'm not happy, something needs to change. I'm willing to back myself and understand that there's a short and a long game. Too many of us are focused always on the short term. Like, what do I get now? In other words, you might be an online coach wanting to scale online, but you're not willing to eat shit for the next 12 months and earn peanuts, to learn the skills you need to actually succeed in 2 years from now. Well, then this is not for you. Like, you've got to have that ability to measure the short term against the long term gain, right? So you have to pay your dues, and that dues might come in terms of a sweat equity. Sweat equity is something we don't talk about. You've got to stop thinking about earning on the hour, earning like working and earning $1, for example. When you step into these entrepreneurial spaces and you're starting to have these types of conversations, you are going to work so many hours for free before you get paid what you think you deserve. But the beautiful thing is that on the other end of that investment are rivers and rivers and rivers of potential income, but you've got to get there. And
100%.
I feel like I'm preaching to myself at the moment, but yeah, man. Like, I worked all weekend. I worked all weekend. It was just Easter. I worked all weekend. Like,
yeah, I'm always talking to myself.
Yeah,
I'm always having a chat when I'm out walking the dogs.
I feel like I'm preaching to myself at the moment.
Mate, well, for someone at your level, 8-figure entrepreneur, still preaching to yourself, still believing in yourself, super, super inspiring stuff. Yeah. And honestly, you, AG, AP, you guys really inspired me. And I remember our first ever interaction. It was the first week you collected $100K in cash. And I thought, he was a PT at Fitness First. I was a salesman at Fitness First. I'm going to have a crack.
Yeah, man. And I'm glad it inspired you, and I hope it inspires many others. And, there's a beautiful thing in that, I guess we're all connected in some way, shape or form. If we should never look at any other business owner as a competitor, but instead we should look at them as someone that gives you belief and leverage and encouragement. And when you do that, then you start to rise. You start
100%.
to rise. Yeah.
Well, mate, thank you so much again for your time. Really, really appreciate it.
Mate, thanks for being on, and hopefully this inspires some people to do some crazy stuff.
Awesome. Thanks, Shane.
Yeah,
Bye.
good on you guys.